Da 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 da.
Paul
Da, da.
Rakowski.
Rakowski, he is with us for the hour today.
And we're going to discuss what
it felt like to be gay and married on
a wonderful
chaos. You may notice that we have a green screen behind us today, which would normally have something on it.
And the reason we don't is because it is a wonderful chaos. And we, of course, technology doesn't always work for us. And
it didn't work today.
It did not work today, apparently.
Yes.
So
I
was going into our back office for StreamYard, which is the platform we broadcast our show, and I saw we have one more show left.
You need a countdown. You have like this incessant need to count down.
So this today, guys, it's your last Thursday.
It's your last Thursday. Yes. I hope there's tears, you know. I mean, I what I feel like is I don't know what certain people are going to do with their day if they can't time their kind of 5 o'clock kind of transition into the evening with us. Like, I know that there's some people that just put us on the background at 5 just to know, you know. I always like saying we're Oprah to 10 people.
On the live part.
Yeah, on the live part. So, Paul, how did you meet Paul?
I had a really good client, and we had a friendship developed from that work relationship. And Paul, and he said, you need to meet Paul.
Oh, nice.
And I said, okay, let's meet Paul. And we met Paul. We had lunch, and it was a very beautiful click. I'm having lunch with Paul, and he's sharing very rawly experiences about his papa, about the fact that he had an ex-wife and he's gay.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, we should have you on the podcast. We've never had a gay man married to a woman before.
Yeah,
we've had two straight men.
Yeah, exactly.
Who fell in love and got married. We had
transgender. Yeah, we've gone. You know, we had. I liked our
pronouns.
The gender pronouns show. I mean, we've gone and tried to bring it on, and this is a good one. Yeah. I enjoy like that journey that Paul would have had to have gone through. So
today, a potential client reached out to me. It was one of the people that I called email.
Okay.
And he said, hey, I'd love to connect with you. And we had an hour conversation. So we're going to have him also on our talk show. For him, it's sex addiction and drug addiction. And he had some beautiful discoveries to share.
Oh, sweet. We have to find a funky title for that one.
Yeah, we've already had sex addiction with a monk.
Yeah, maybe we'll do like one of those, like when we add several words together, like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Like maybe have something like that or something quirky. Yes.
Shall we bring him on?
Yeah, why not?
Or shall we chat a little bit more?
No, we can just bring him on. You know, he can enjoy our chat with us. Hey, Paul Rakowski.
Hi.
My first question is, why are most gay men fucking good looking?
Well, I don't know if I don't know who you're referring to, but in general, I think that people, gay men, have to try harder than straight men. I think
they have to try harder.
Yes, of course.
Yes. What makes you say that? I would have never come to that conclusion.
I think that the amount of pressure that the gay men have to appear a certain way comes from the fact that when they do hide, they have to create this persona, and I think that it carries over into the way we appear, the projections that people have onto us within the community and also, externally.
My mind is going into a lot of places right now.
I want to hear more about a projection that you've experienced.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, which one? There are thousands. Yeah, there's even within the gay community, to be honest, I think that, well, actually, I think it can be a little bit more difficult to navigate. It can also be a little bit more vicious than, that what we hear from people who are homophobic. I think that there's quite a bit of internalized homophobia within our community.
Yeah.
And from that, there are levels of expectation that either people put on us, project onto us, or we internally, put on ourselves. I know I do it. I have to look a certain way, try to look a certain way to fit in.
And you'd say you try to look that way so that people won't project onto you in a way that is whatever, following a stereotype or negative.
Either following a stereotype or even maybe project or conveying a stereotype, I guess. I think men in general today, there's a lot of pressure that only women used to experience. I think that looking good and taking care of yourself is moved into men are experiencing it more and more. The media has a projection. I mean, all you have to do is you have to look on, ads, advertisements, and you see ripped men that look like bombos, and you see this beauty.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, of course you do. You're a very beautiful man, you know that, right? But that's my projection onto you, and that level of, I think we also look up to, a certain standard, whether we're conscious of it or not. At least I know I do. I don't want to speak for everybody in the community, but there's a tremendous amount of pressure on us to fit into a category. And if you don't, you can be othered very quickly.
This conversation is going really deep, really fast, and you're saying so much that we could make a podcast just on the
I was just thinking about, I want to bring my wife in here because, like, when I'm 20 kilos overweight, like, I'll walk in the room naked and said, "Baby, look at what you got."
Yeah, a lot more to love, right?
A lot more. The joy with Andy is he just doesn't care, and actually neither do I. I photographed him nude. We create this kind of Rembrandt table with flowers and
I want to see that.
With two business clients, two business people that were.
Oh, I'm talking about the other one we made.
Which one?
The one that we didn't use because your wife said it would hurt her business.
She had two standards. Me acting and behaving so free would have repercussions for her.
It was just too funny.
I forgot about that.
Oh man, I still have the pictures. I'll use them against you.
Exactly.
So, are you homophobic?
Yeah.
Do you experience homophobia?
Wow. The short answer to that is at times in my life I have been, and I have to say that based upon my experience and how I was raised, I can't help but hear the words that I used to be subjected to on a regular basis. So I, to be honest with you, I think all of us have internalized isms. And am I homophobic? It sneaks up on me, I guess, but I'm able to catch it. They're internalized thoughts. I don't act on it, but I always have thoughts.
When you're at like a pride event, you know what I found really interesting, because I do have probably more gay friends than straight friends, strangely. My wife has always questioned, like, does that just mean that you are gay? You just haven't accepted it yet? And I've tried to convince her, no,
or is it because you're one of a kind?
Right, and even that is a stereotype.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that I found interesting is that even on like Pride days, I can't say that all of my friends really enjoy Pride, It's
Right.
almost like they're like, guys, come on, we're past this already. Or so what are the feelings you have when you like see a pride parade?
Well, I feel a sense of understanding, because anytime a group is robbed of their voice, is marginalized, is kept in the dark, when they do have an opportunity to speak, it oftentimes comes out in a way that sometimes appears exaggerated by the majority, and it's just our opportunity to speak, because we've been shunned. We've been robbed of a voice. We've been pushed off to the side. So I don't have any negative reaction to it. As a matter of fact, when I say maybe I have some internalized homophobia, it's certainly there's stories that I had fed to me as a child, and when they come up, I have to decide, okay, is this my story, or is this a story that is sneaking in even at my age?
Yeah. I think one of the shows when we were dealing, we had a lot of, when we were going on, when Black Lives Matter was on. And I said, it would always be my preference for people to stop saying, I'm not a racist, and to say, I am a racist. I just don't know where yet. Like, because in that space, there's pure discovery, and we're not trying to defend anything. Because in a way, what we're saying is there's things we can't be aware of in ourselves. And if we're allowing ourselves to look, we'll discover things that aren't comfortable. But if we're defending it, there's no discovery, because we're always going to be trying to like tell the other person that they don't see or understand, and then we don't learn and grow. So I got it. Yeah.
The brighter the projection, the darker the shadow. And so if something is disowned, then it becomes fueled with discomfort, and most people dislike discomfort, and that discomfort turns into hate. So if we can't own, if I can't own the messages that I grew up with, I can't help what I learned. I can only take what I learned and say, wait a second, does that apply to me now? And if so, why? And how the hell am I gonna to change that? And it only allows me to see. I've been able to witness suffering in a very different way. I'm a white, gay, male, privileged individual, and being a white male, educated, I have the ability to hide my difference if I need to.
Yeah.
I actually think dogs know I'm gay, but if I need to butch it up a little bit, I can butch it up. I can stand taller, and people can say, oh, they can pass him off as straight, which I did a lot, by the way, while I was married.
Does that mean you would check out women?
Well, I identify as a gay man, but there are plenty of beautiful women in the world. There are plenty of beautiful people in the world.
When you were playing the role.
Yeah. Would you pretend like you were interested? Like, oh, she's hot.
Of course. I don't objectify, but of course I did. I especially, and my former wife and I, we always played a game of, who do we see other people, who are beautiful. And I secretly in my mind, oftentimes I was thinking, wow, I agree. With her choice.
So, you had so much in common.
Well, and I always joke that, that we got a divorce because we like the same things.
Nice.
I really loved it when you said that also at the lunch. So up until you got a divorce, I'm assuming now that you were suppressing being gay.
Yes.
And when exactly did you discover in yourself, like, oh, I'm actually attracted to the same sex?
I've known it all my life. I remember the first time that, if I can bring identity to it, I remember being very young and looking at older people in my family, older cousin in particular, and going, wow, of course you're a child, you don't identify and know. There were a few things in my life that sidetracked me and made me question, oh, are you just feeling that way for a certain reason? Or are you authentically gay? And I spent a lot of my time trying to, pardon my language, fuck myself straight because of my background. I grew up in a rural community in Missouri, farming community. We were it was a very religious community. We were Catholic, Lutheran, and incredibly, unfortunately, my father was racist, homophobic, misogynistic, and I learned very quickly how to hide.
That must have been when you're young and you have your father is homophobe. Like, how does that impact you when you have feelings and you're going and having this dad that you already know is not going to accept whenever you do share how you feel?
In a strange way, there's a tremendous amount of power in secrets. And for many reasons, I was able to identify that I had a secret, several secrets. And once you recognize, there's power in secrets. And so I took that power and I used it.
I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding what you mean. There's power in secrets. Can you clarify?
If I know something of myself and I'm keeping it from other people, then that gives me an advantage. And one advantage is, especially when I was married, I was able to gain a lot of information because if you're married to a woman, automatically people assume you're straight, right? So when you're in a space of men and you identify as a straight male who's married and you're listening, you find out who's safe very quickly because all of their filters drop, all of their because they sing they're safe, and so they'll say whatever the hell they want to, and you can determine very quickly whether someone is faking tolerance or acceptance, and so there's power in that.
Yeah, the movie Philadelphia, I can't watch it without crying. It's a painful movie to watch.
The really old with Tom Hanks.
With Tom Hanks. The scene when they're out and then they're out and then the boss tells the joke that then he realizes at that moment he can't actually say what's really going, that his sexuality at that moment. And that was a really powerful scene for me because it was like, wow, like you said, their guard was down because they already made assumptions that if they were here that they must be straight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow. Yep. Fascinating. I had interesting that you talked about being the white privileged male gay, and I've been sort of having some contact with the organization GLSEN, which is in the U.S. and they do a lot of fundraising with the director of GLSEN, and it was one of the things that I found really interesting is that there's a lot of what do you call it, social equity, all of these movements that are occurring at the moment. And one of them that I found very, I would say, painful was that I went to their gala dinner in New York 2 years ago. And I was there and they were really like talking against white gay males in a negative form, which kind of felt really uncomfortable for me because I thought, hold on, aren't we all part of the same community? And what I saw within the LGBTQ community is that since the white gay male had kind of become the face of the LGBTQ movement, because that through the 80s, all the sitcoms that came out, there was always the quirky gay designer that was on the show. Like that became the face of what was tolerated or considered acceptable. So what I found was sad was that instead of embracing that these people led the way, they were being trashed. We don't need another white gay male on the on a sitcom, and it really was like, it was sad to see.
And I understand it though too. I agree because again, this goes much deeper than this conversation, but white male privilege is rampant in the world, and all you have to do is you look at politics around the world. So I have an understanding of that, and it's also, you know, what's tolerated. A lot of people, in my mind, don't realize and understand that homophobia is a subtle form of sexism. Because people who are homophobic, what are they homophobic? What are the slurs that people use? You know, and basically they are derogatory toward the stereotypical man who is not as masculine as he's supposed to be, more feminine qualities. And if you are more feminine, then you aren't accepted. So what is it? What's the message? The message is that you know, you've got to be butch, you've got to be a man.
Yeah.
And those lesser qualities are weaker qualities. When in
Yeah,
fact,
and you also the pejoratives, like you're being a pussy, you're, you know, like it's even in how we talk and then put
yes,
someone down. Yeah.
I don't know if it's because I've grown older, more conscious, but when I hear pussy or man up, it does make me cringe inside, because actually what we're diminishing something very beautiful and powerful in all aspects. So and back in when I was younger, even, or our parents' generations, that was really a norm. And I think today you can still find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
you know, one of the things that you hear, you know, and you even hear you even hear women say it sometimes, is grow a pair. And the assumption, the completion of that sentence is grow a pair of balls. So what I always say, and I believe this, grow a pair of ovaries. Because I have to tell you, in my personal opinion, the world would be a much different place if it were ruled by ovaries instead of testicles.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's even laws now that changed in the Netherlands, where the just from a gender equality standpoint, on boards of companies, they are forced to have a certain percentage female now. It's not even an option. So it's you see it already happening in certain areas, and it will evolve, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I'm also seeing, and we've also had our guest Marcia, who's a criminal lawyer. She also was sharing that being a woman means that she needs to work extra hard,
Of course.
and she probably won't even get half the recognition of what a male doing half the work she's doing.
Yes.
And maybe they're even below her
Hierarchically.
Yeah, that word.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the problem. You know, men are so much easier to discuss or talk or be proud of things they know very little about, where women will often underestimate their capacity, or not underestimated, they'll be honest about what they're incapable about, and that'll be a reason why they don't do something, which is sad, because what happens is, because of that trait, then all of a sudden the men will get into roles and positions where they'll learn and grow much quicker. That's just what
men are taught to bullshit. I mean, at what age did you learn to bullshit? You know, I know for me, at least, I learned how to bullshit very early, and that's, you know, and I business is full of bullshit.
True.
And if people are authentic and speak the truth, how is, you know, unfortunately there's this misguided notion that being honest and authentic is somehow less than. So it's definitely difficult.
I'd like to go back to this to the story part of this show. And now you get married. How old are you when you get married?
It's 21.
And how long were you together with your ex by that
A
time?
year.
So you were together a year. You're 20. You meet her. You get married at 21. So in that 8 years, like give me a feeling, like, what does that 8 years feel like? Like, what's that?
It was the most amazing time in my life to this day. I was married to my best friend.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the most, I have to say, the single most influential person in my life.
Wow.
Someone who saved my life too.
Yeah.
Your answer really surprised me, and it also pleases me.
Yeah.
I was lucky. You know, I've heard stories on the other end where someone is struggling with their sexual identity, and they come out and it ends very tragically. And you know, people say I was lucky, and I of course I think I was lucky, but I also think that I think that both of us we I have a tremendous amount of respect to this day for my former wife, more so than pretty much, you know, it, she saved my life. So,
Yeah. But in those 8 years, right, when you're living a lie, because I assume once you shared with her that you were gay, I don't know how long you were together after that point.
well, you know, I have to say that I wasn't living a lie for that entire 8 years. I spent much of my life questioning whether, in fact, I was actually gay or not,
Oh.
for many reasons. And I had every intention of, you know, I did not go into this, into the marriage, thinking that I was living a lie. I had tremendous confusion, you know, based upon experiences that you know messed with my sexual identity development, and you know, so it wasn't that I was living a lie. I think you know, once we got out of graduate school, we both got out of graduate school, and I started teaching at a community college and teaching biology at a community college. And the first semester that I taught, I had a lot to do. You know, I had to develop a lot of things, and you spend a lot of time developing the curriculum. But then after that, your time starts being a little bit more free, and then I had more time to think. And so I started running,
You
and I
started?
started exercising, running and exercising. And I I had a little bit of a problem with exercise. And I remember one afternoon. It was in August. It was probably four o'clock, and in Missouri, in the heat of the day. And I got home from a run, and she looked at me and she said, "You know, you've got to get some help. There's something, you know." And I did. I did get some help, and so I started into the therapy process and spent a year hating my therapist. Um, Hating him. And thank God he was able to uh, tolerate that level of hate, because I was resisting at every turn, having to accept who I was, because I knew it would be the end of my life, or so I thought. And it was the
Yeah.
end of my life, the life that I had planned out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. Actually, if I think I'll often share on the show that, like, to live a life, you kind of die many deaths before your actual death, and it's some of the hardest moments is when you had an idea of what it was supposed to be, and then life serves you up a whole different version of events.
Yes.
So in a way, would have kind of been the first time in your life you would have experienced that on that
Oh
level?
God, no, no, no. There are many others before that, but as far as a profound shift in my plans for the future, that was the first time that I knew that I had to rebuild and discover. I discover, anew who I was, and
Yeah.
it was difficult.
So up until that point, you did not explore being with a man, or
No.
even no.
Wow.
And did you date women prior to this
Oh yeah.
relationship?
Oh yeah. Yes, I did. And like I said, I spent a lot of time trying to fuck myself straight. And I don't mean to be,
No.
that's a crass thing to say, but in my mind, I was trying to compensate, uh, and so
Yeah.
It really blows my mind, the responsibility of being a parent, because in your case, it feels like was it both parents that hammered beliefs into you or would say things? So
Yeah.
you didn't really have a chance. They gave you a reality of how the world should be,
Yeah.
and then you had to
Parents do
kind
that.
of poke that out.
My father was verbal about what we were not supposed to be. You know, my mother didn't hammer things in, but there was a level of expectation, you know, for my sister and I, that it was just an implied. There was no discussion. You know, both of us we were very good. We didn't cause trouble. We were successful in school. We went on to be successful individuals, intelligent, but it wasn't ever the discussion. But the messages, especially, you know, the verbal messages, the nonverbal message, the implied, absolutely. You know, my mom was a very gentle individual. However, you know, she had to cope as well. And so coping strategies, when they're not owned, can seep out.
Yeah.
I'm leaving end of the month to go to Cyprus, and as my days are numbered here in Amsterdam, I'm tuning into the mentality that I grew up in. Like just because a friend shared that she's having some experiences at the moment, and it just threw me right back into the past, because in a way it's an island, and the mentality is, I would say, is very conservative and very rigid sometimes. So if you're in a relationship with someone, there's a claiming, or there's a very strong idea of right and wrong, and there's almost to the point where there's actually no space to have a conversation where you get to explore the differences and meet somewhere. Like that doesn't exist. And I remember when I was in the army, even they had a saying, where the army begins, logic ends.
Of course, it has to.
So yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But that's actually, I realized it's not only in the army, because the whole island goes to the army. So in a way, it becomes a mentality on the island. So when you say Missouri, I have no idea, but the way you described it, can I connect it a little bit? Do you resonate with what I just said?
It's the buckle of the Bible Belt. In
It's
the
buckle of the
United States, it's the buckle of the Bible Belt. You know, Missouri is a very religious state. It's a very conservative state, and so there is a mentality. You know, in Springfield, Missouri, where I went to university, where I met my former wife, and continued my continuing education. The number of mega churches, stadiums. You know, it's almost like seeing a McDonald's or a Starbucks, because that's how numerous they are. And I'll give you an example. The last time I was actually home visiting my sister, I happened to be at a gas station and filling up gas. And in the United States, you have a car, everybody has a car. And they have this new trend now where there's TVs at the gas pump.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was getting gas one morning, and it happened to be a Sunday morning, and boom, right there was a church service. And yeah.
So my question to you would be, how safe would it have been for you to come out at any point? And is it like, and when I say safe, as in I'm scared for my life?
You know, there have only been a couple of times where I have felt, well, I should say, and my level of tolerance is very high. Have I ever been concerned for my safety as a gay man? There's been a couple of times that the hair on the back of my neck has stood up, and I've thought, okay, you know, this is going to go south very quickly.
Wow.
When my former wife and I did get a divorce, it shocked our community. It shocked the people that we loved, our friend group. They were shocked, and my mom was went into a deep depression. And it took me a very long time before I shared with her. I actually waited until my father died before I told her that I was gay.
Wow. How old were you when you told her?
Let's see here. My father died. It was, gosh, I can't remember. I was 32. I think it was 32.
Wow. So
And I wrote my
32,
mom. Yeah.
your mom still didn't know that you were gay at 32.
Well, it's funny because I wrote my mom a letter. I was living in Denver, Colorado, and I wrote my mom a letter and I registered it certified mail and I tracked it online. And so I knew when she got it. And I was nervous because I knew when it was going to arrive. I knew when she picked it up. And when she called me, I was too scared to pick up the phone. And she left me a message and she said that, there was nothing that I could say that would make her love me any less. So I was relieved because in that letter I wrote to her very specifically, I said, do not mistake my desire to have you in my life for a need to have you in my life. Because I have grown to a point, and it's something I believe now, I desire people in my life, but I don't need individuals in my life. Of course, we all need people, but I desire people in my life, but if they don't accept me, then
they can go fuck themselves.
And based on, I felt the emotion there, like based on that, like, fuck, man, sorry, but fuck, you were anticipating potentially being rejected by your mama, and you had to wait. I mean, you crossed your father out pretty much.
Of course, I did. Yes. For my mom, actually, I was protecting my mom because I knew that if I came out while my dad was alive, at least in my mind, I knew that then my mom would have to make a choice between my father and me. And I didn't, the level of stress that would put her in, I wasn't willing to do that.
How often would you have seen your mom and dad, say, between the time you would have gotten divorced and then this point? Were you visiting them, or did you kind of separate?
No, I was visiting them because very quickly after I moved to Colorado, my father became ill and he needed constant care. And so for a period of time before his death, I was going back and forth quite often. And so, my mother was trying her best. My sister was doing her best to assist from Springfield to the rural town that we lived in. So I was going back quite frequently.
It must be so challenging, though, because in some ways, like you said, that secrets are, powerful things. But on another level, like, were there ever moments where you thought, okay, the secret could come out any moment, and then there was some anxiety of that, or did you not even care about that?
Well, how could the secret come out? It certainly wouldn't be something that my father or my mother would bring up. However, it's interesting because when my mom finally, when I told her, she came and I invited her to come for Christmas and to meet my then partner. And when she got there, she fell in love with my former partner, the guy I was dating at the time. We both have a thing for a certain type of man. And she joked, she said, we kind of have the same taste. And I was laughing a little bit at it. And she said, and she said to me, I was very, very depressed because I couldn't understand you and your former wife. My wife had such an amazing relationship. She couldn't understand what it was, why we were doing it. She thought that I was being deceptive. And then she said one morning she woke up and she opened her eyes and like, my son is gay. And then she said from that point forward, she just accepted and she was fine. Yeah. And I was like, yep, you were right. Moms know. Moms know. They really do.
Yeah, I mentioned, and also it was one of the stories in the book, a dear friend of mine from college, he was in love with me, but he didn't tell me. Mm-hmm. And it was many years later that he wrote me a letter. No, it was in the new one.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
He wrote me a letter that said,
Mhm.
Andy, his coming out letter, and then he told me he was also going to go seek therapy, but not therapy. He was going to go because he was from a Filipino family, so they got to put him into to heal him from his gayness. So
Yeah.
it was a sad moment for me because I'm like, okay, so let's agree, you're loved and accepted, and you're not going to any fucking you're not going to be ungayed.
Right.
Like I'll love you, but I'm not going to love you under the condition you wasted 30 years. I'm not letting you waste another day. That was
Exactly.
and we've been really
Actually,
close since.
in the book, you said, "I accept you," and when are you going to accept yourself?
Yeah.
And you can let your parents go to therapy.
Yeah. Yeah, they're
True
going to have
that.
to start going.
to deal with it.
Yeah.
There were a couple of, my former wife and I had a few, friends who were gay, and a lot of them would tease me and say, "Oh my God, Paul, you're gay." Um, and I remember actually one afternoon being on a run with one of my friends, and who was gay, one of our friends who was gay, and we were talking, and I don't know why, but I asked him, I said, "How do you know you're gay?" And he said, "How do you know you're straight?" And I could have melted at that point. And at that point, I'm sure he knew, because the horror on my, I didn't know how to respond. Um, it's one of those moments where you're caught so off guard you can't recover and fake your way through it.
Yeah.
Um, and then, interestingly enough, after that, he backed way off of ever teasing me anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think he knew.
Oh, you
Of
never
course he
spoke
knew.
about it.
Oh God, no.
But even still today, you haven't spoken to him, or did you ever?
No, actually, it's interesting because he was originally a friend of my sister's. They went to school together, and we met through them. And I just actually, a couple of years ago, she happened to mention him, that he now has, interestingly enough, almost, he has an amazing photography studio. And so I did a little bit of research, got online and looked at his photography. And I thought about reaching out, but I didn't.
Yeah, isn't it funny how like like when we knew someone at a certain time in our lives, it's often not comfortable to reach out to them because you're so different than you were then. But in a way, it's like interacting with them as they know the other person. You're almost like,
Yeah.
It's weird to interact with them today because they don't really know who they're interacting with, right?
Of course,
Yeah.
And it's amazing. The other amazing thing about it is when I did tell people, I did tell people, a few people, and I did come out to a few people. And I have to say, one of the biggest shocks to me is that there were certain people who I absolutely thought, they're going to be supportive and amazing, and they weren't.
Wow.
And then there were people who I told for whatever reason and thought, okay, this may not go well, and they were the most accepting, loving. So it was a mind fuck for me, because I was like, okay, wait a second, my level of gauging safety was not right,
The
and
power
that
of
scared me
mystery.
a little.
Yeah.
It
I
scared
think
me.
that similar phenomena happens when someone leaves a job they've been at for a very long time because they get all these people they think are really good friends, and then they leave the job, and then they see when the transaction is no longer required, they kind of just disappear because they don't need anything from you anymore.
Yeah, that happened
Well,
to you.
yeah,
Yeah. It happens
attachment.
to a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul, again, what touches me in what you just shared is you had to go and say that you were gay, as opposed to, hey, I'm straight.
Yeah.
Like the norm is I'm straight.
Yeah, societally,
So
we already have an expectation.
Everything else is an abnormality or a side effect. I mean, even putting a label, gay, whatever, there's a separation there, which is really clear. So the fact that a child at a very young age that might be like attuned to, hey, I'm a boy and I like boys, I need to come out and go through that pressure to tell my parents, if I'm going to tell my parents, Like Jesus.
Yeah, it's socialized at such an early age that we don't realize that we take it for granted that people are supposed to be something. In this
Yes.
case, straight. So, and I think this is something that you see in the new generation is they don't take that for granted, which is why we see all the things with gender identity, sexual preference, how those two things are so separate and they're allowed to be living independently of one another. Where we just like everyone today is like, hey, like let's just say I'm straight or whatever. Just it's just it was easier for them to work it out before.
And it's interesting. You mentioned earlier if I had any internalized homophobia, and I can tell you an example of how that played out. When I moved to Colorado, the first jobs that I took, I didn't come out to work. I didn't share my sexual identity or my gender identity with anybody. And of course, people assume. I can't tell you how many times people would try to set me up, and so I would navigate that. And one particular specific example is this one individual, she, for whatever reason, took a liking to me, and I enjoyed her company, and I invited her to dinner, and she tried everything she could to get me to go after her, and I just wouldn't do it. I was polite, and then the next day, she sent me an email and she said, "Hey, Paul, are you gay?" And I said, "Let's have lunch." And so, I at that point,
Huh?
We lost your audio.
We lost your audio. We lost the visual.
We'll see what we get back. Yeah.
I do love this subject because I don't think it's been spoken enough.
Yeah.
Or there's a lot of conversations, but it's just a different quality and how we're engaging. And I love how Paul is bringing himself in.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because I think in some ways there's a shaming also that occurs with people who are in Paul's position because as he said, I was confused, right? Like he didn't, when we asked earlier, he didn't say, hey, what do you say? He didn't say, hey, I was dishonest or deceitful.
Yeah.
He said I was confused, right? And in that way, there was really a beauty to how he engaged that situation. Because in that way, it makes sense. It's like, yeah, you're trying to make it work, not realizing that it was futile, but you needed to get there till you figured out that it didn't make sense anymore.
Well, he said he was confused, but if you're growing up in an environment where there's a lot of stress and a lot of judgment and a lot of pressure about how you're supposed to be and act, then there isn't enough space to actually explore yourself.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
and the beauty with him, he did meet a woman who
you gave him space.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been easy for. We'll bring him back on again. See if we're connected. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We hear you.
All right. Sorry about that.
It's all
I
good.
don't know what happened.
Life happens. It's a wonderful chaos, and we like it that way. That's a song. It's a wonderful chaos, and we like it that way.
Are we allowed to play our song with this?
I think you could try to find it. We have
A
our
podcast.
audio engineer, Cass Midgley. He created a wonderful song with lyrics, but we don't have lyrics on the live show. We only have them on the podcast version.
Okay.
And Don always wanting me the lyrics to the song because he came up with beautifully random lyrics that I just loved.
Yeah, when I don't know the lyrics of a song, I'll make my own.
We have some comments that we should bring on as well. Just Joe, who was also on the show 2 weeks ago, I believe now.
The term man up, etc., is a trigger for me. I also view gay bashing as yet another form of toxic masculinity policing aka also knowing keeping masculinity in check with accepted
Mhm.
norms. Yeah.
Yeah, it's keeping masculinity in check with accepted norms. That's it. Yeah.
I on Saturday I met because I'm leaving. I came together with a few male friends, and even though I'd love to feel close to a lot of them, when we hug, I can feel that the hug is not fully like, "Hey, brother, come here. I love you." So as we were speaking and you're talking about friends, I realized, oh wow, I could recognize potentially I wouldn't have the relationship I do with some of them if I was
Yes.
gay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's true. I mean, you cannot, you know, you do the straight hug, the straight male hug. Everybody knows it. You know, you back your crotch off of them, and you,
Yeah,
God
yeah,
forbid that
totally.
you touch crotches.
Got,
You know, it's
it's a
yeah,
back off.
exactly.
It's a
Yeah, yeah.
shoulder. It's a shoulder
Mhm,
touch and 3
mhm.
pats.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And
Yeah.
so, you know, I'm a very affectionate person. I've learned over the years to 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 be respectful of people's space, but I'm a naturally huggy individual. Um, but you know, it's interesting. You know, within the gay community, if, for example, if you're on the apps or if you're dating or if you're wanting, you know, talking about internalized homophobia within the community, you know, you're on your apps, you're saying, hey, if you're going to hook up, you know, what are you into? Are you a top or a bottom? You
Oh
know,
yeah.
and I don't know I don't know what it's like to navigate the apps as a heteronormed individual, but I doubt very seriously that people ask those questions.
You
And
get blacklisted or hashtag
Yeah.
me too.
yeah,
It's
A gay
interesting.
friend of mine says, we gay men have it easy. Like we don't do the playing hard to get. We just get straight
right,
to it.
yes.
And with you men, you get a carrot and you dangling, you need to chase the carrot.
Well, and the same, you know, and the reason, by the way, the reason straight men get a carrot is because there is an assumed misogyny. You know, whether or not it is warranted or not,
Mm,
straight men are assumed to be misogynistic, and I can completely understand why,
yeah.
because I assume homophobia when I meet a straight man. I'm always taking a step back, and so I certainly cannot relate to how a woman feels to be perpetrated on by a man in
Yeah.
that way. But you know, like it or not, as a layer of protection, uh, you have to assume misogyny.
And also women can
Mm.
get pregnant, by the way. So that's why you they need to
Yeah,
check.
yeah. Well, that's the least
Um,
of their worries.
what was your so what was your first impression of me?
You want the truth? You're hot, Bombos.
No, I meant in terms of you can tell when someone has hang-ups or
I knew you didn't have hangups because you were a friend of my friend, and
ah,
he's an amazing, beautiful human being. So I knew that anyone he would be friends with
yeah,
would have the same level of awareness that he does. So I had full trust in him, and I allowed that full trust to be. But you know, it's no
yeah.
secret you're a hot man.
Yes, I
All
am.
due respect.
You know what's funny is that anytime I bring over anyone from America, from the gay
Mhm.
friends that have, they all assume Bambos is gay, but he doesn't know it yet. Like that's what everyone says to me whenever they leave.
You know, and what's interesting about that is that I don't see that. I see a man who is finally authentic and embodied and not afraid to be authentic and embodied and communicate in a way that is assumed to be feminine.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
you know, but if you ever happen to want to experiment,
I'm your man.
What's
I'm
that
I'm
song?
I'm kidding with you. I hope you know that.
Actually, you're
That's
not.
And
yeah.
we're just fine with it. We're just fine with it.
Uh,
Uh,
you
you
don't
know,
know.
we have.
I've also have a lot of gay male friends, and
Mhm.
a lot of them say, "Oh, you're leaving, and I didn't get to have sex with you." Like there's all that going on, and
We have also a friend that's independent. We're not going to name names, but we also see that he has this undercurrent of homophobia.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because you know it when there's the joke, which isn't it fully at peace with it. Like two people can tell the same exact joke, but you'll feel the discomfort or acceptance, or when it's like I'm separating myself because I don't want to necessarily be seen as
Of
gay.
course.
Yeah.
And you know, Shakespeare, he who doth protest the loudest, you know, and I think that people, the more homophobic they are, oftentimes they have more to hide. And whether or not they are gay or not, whether they are questioning or not, I think that comes through. And I'm not saying that people who are homophobic are gay or straight, or I'm just saying that there's a fear, and it's a warranted fear.
Yeah. A lot of times it is to do with identity, like who am I if people start to see me in a certain way.
Yeah.
So in a way, if I need outer validation to feel comfortable, then that's the thing I'm going to hold on to and try to create more of.
Yeah.
Yes. And I can tell you in my personal experience, in my professional experience, there are a lot of closeted gay men who you would never in a million years think. You would just assume that they are straight, heteronormed, you know, on the scale of 1 or 0 to 6, they're a full 0. They're
any famous people we should know about?
No famous people that I know.
You know what was interesting, like the Kevin Spacey. Like I knew Kevin Spacey was gay decade before it was known in the public realm. And it was interesting because he clearly felt like he had to keep the persona of straight in order to get the cast and the roles or whatever society would have seen it to be. So it was always fascinating. Like, how did he get away with it for so long? Right? Because it was known, and yet it wasn't known in the mainstream.
Yeah, because how could a gay man ever play a straight role, right? There's no way that a gay man could ever play a straight role. And obviously, I'm being incredibly glib.
Yeah.
It's acting, but there is a stereotype.
Well, there's a lot of backlash today when people play roles where they're not the gender or the sexual orientation. This one, Supernova, was the one I saw most recently. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but it's a painfully sad movie to watch about a gay couple. One of them has dementia, and they go on one last journey together. And it just is a very the movie was so powerful, and it had nothing to do with their sexuality. And I think that was what made it so powerful, is that you didn't at any time in the movie start to think that this wasn't just a loving couple, which is what made it so powerful. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. My favorite gay movie is In and Out. So I have to just name it. Have you seen that Kevin Kline movie?
No.
I have.
It's an exceptional movie. It was
In and Out.
In and Out. You have to see it, Thomas.
I loved Brokeback Mountain.
Tom Selleck is in it as well.
Just because I like that actor. I forgot his name. The one that died.
Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
Legend. Help me understand. You know, we didn't actually ask this question or get there, but when you finally did tell your wife, "Hey, honey, I shrunk the kids," like what was her reaction? You said she reacted brilliantly, but what was her reaction?
She stood up and told me thank you for telling me, and that it's okay, and that I was the best person that she knew.
Wow. You received unconditional love.
I did.
Yeah.
I did, yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And it allowed me to proceed with my life, to love as unconditionally as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And it's right here on my arm to remind me.
I don't think anyone can understand what that feels like unless they allow themselves to feel that.
Yes.
Yeah.
We don't suppress tears, so feel free to be with us in that space.
Oh,
By the
but
way,
I was taught to suppress tears. Speaking of, another internalized, this isn't a sexuality issue, it's a gender issue. Um, boys don't cry, do they?
Yeah.
It's fascinating because I spoke at both. I did the eulogy for both my father and my mother. When my father died, I could barely speak. I was sobbing so much, and I was not close to my father. But I was able to be with him the last 3 days of his life before he died. And I could barely get the words out. And I was very close to my mom. And when she died, not a tear, not even a tear was shed. And it struck me. I was like, why the hell? Why the hell? And what I realized is I got to say what I wanted to say to my mom before she died. I didn't get a chance to share what I wanted to share with my dad.
Yeah.
So all of that came out at his eulogy.
Yeah.
And I looked over at my mom and my sister, and my mom said, it's okay. And it was okay. And so I could proceed, and I got through it.
Wow.
So.
wow. We've come to the end of our hour, but it's just been so beautiful to witness you in all the whole journey that you shared. It blew my mind. And your ex-wife,
Former wife.
wow, former wife.
Yeah.
What a heart!
Yeah.
You picked well.
An angel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you tear up, I often feel the same well up of an emotion when I feel an unconditional love from another, and I see that when I live my life today, that when I allow another to feel that in my connection to them, that feels like the greatest gift I can give another.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's how I try to live my life. And I have to say, anybody who tries to live their life that way, it's not an easy life.
No.
It takes a level of vulnerability, and you get hurt. And you have to be able to process that hurt and get back up and do it again.
Yeah. My wife always gets angry with me when I let that hurt in. And she says, why do you do that to yourself? Why do you do that to yourself? Why do you do? And I keep explaining to her, baby, everything else is a life that I can't live. You suppress all the emotions and then you don't really live anymore. Yeah. Well, thank you, Paul, for being with
You're
us.
welcome. You're welcome. Thank you all very much for having me. I don't know what I have to offer, but I definitely enjoyed visiting with you all.
Oh, we're so gonna get you back on end of the year if we continue with the wonderful chaos.
You have to. It's a beautiful message.
Because in a way, we also just do this to spend time with people that we enjoy, and we really enjoyed you. I speak for myself anyway. I don't know about this homophobic guy next to me.
As long as you stay on that side of the screen, everything is fine.
Exactly, right.
When I come back from my Spanish excursion, it would be nice to meet in Amsterdam as well.
I would like that.
Yeah.
We could go to have lunch at that bubbly restaurant that used to be the Thai restaurant.
Our Thai restaurant across the street.
It's tea. It's not.
It's just processed
tapioca,
sugar.
tea, sugar.
Much love. Yeah.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Andy.
One last show, Bambos.
One last show.
How are you going to survive?
I will survive.
A lot of people calling me and say, is Bambos okay? That's what they're asking me. Is Bambos okay?
If you'd like to watch a live taping or participate with your comments in real time, subscribe to A Wonderful Chaos on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, or Twitch. I remember we talked about it once before. If there's any form of violence, our relationship is over. So there have been moments during that time where I felt so fucking angry. And I would call him like, I'm angry right now. And he's like, okay, so just take a deep breath and what's behind the anger. And I have never in my life had someone, I can cry right now.
Unconditional love.
No. Hold that space and invite me to feel the pain behind the anger. Because what was behind the anger was an inability to feel that pain. And the anger was a reaction. And because I would go straight to anger, I never had the opportunity to feel that. So how it plays out in my life right now, if I even feel like 1% angry, it's like, oh, I'm in pain right now. It goes so quick that I don't have to think about it. Yeah. It's a wonderful chaos.
Glorious.
Solo or tandem?
We work to find rest, we fight to find peace, a head and a heart like a nephew and niece. What are we doing here? Where the most is the less that you know. Where the wounded are healers and the atheists pray.
It's a wonderful chaos.
And we like it that way.
It's a wonderful chaos.
And we like it that way.
Damn.
It's a wonderful chaos and we like it
So
that
join
way.
us tomorrow for our last show, people. Our last show.
Until then, yeah, we'll play the song. No, that was the song. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.